And I'm going to walk you through the model that I've created. Now, I've created. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and there are
Sure.
probably hundreds of authors that have contributed to this identification. Maslow being the primary author. Uh, More recently, Jordan Peterson, Lex Friedman, Joe Rogan. Um, for just years back, we're talking about John Maxwell, Covey,
Covey, right.
Lencioni, and the writers of Crucial Conversations and the writers of Strengths Based Leadership and the Gallup organization. So there's a lot of different influences that I have. But before I go through the model, I want to talk a little bit about kind of how I come to this. So the program that I grew up and learned how to teach other leaders was called the Regional Learning Forum, and it was a construct that Dick Dooley of the Dooley Group put together. And I'm fairly certain that it came from experiences that he had at the Aspen Group, which is a think tank in Aspen that exists to this day.
Mm.
And that's why it was called a learning forum, right? So leaders are learners is kind of the idea that he had. And one of his friends was Mortimer Adler. Mortimer Adler was the author of, or the editor of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and also one of two people, I can't remember the other guy's name, but that were responsible for the Great Book series, the Great Books, right? And out of the Great Books, and all of these books were Western thought books, and they created a book called The Great Ideas, and the Great Ideas all came out of the Great Books, and it was sort of like if you've seen I don't remember the guy's name anymore, but I remember the movie. um, um, who was the Braveheart guy that you talked about earlier?
Mel Gibson? Wallace, right.
Wallace, yeah. So Mel Gibson played Wallace in the movie, but Mel Gibson also played the guy who was the author of the Oxford Dictionary. So it was the first time that somebody put together a dictionary, and he was a Scot, I believe, and he actually put together a team of academics who read all of the great books of the day, and then they took words that had not been added to the dictionary yet. And so that's kind of the way that they did it. Literally manually, they would read these books and then highlight words and say, hey, do we have this word yet? No, we don't have this word yet. Let's put it in there. And so Mortimer Adler and his team back in the day in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even into the 70s, read all of the great books. And then as they would come across an idea, they would cross-reference the idea among all these great books. And the great ideas was the deal. And one of the ways that we thought of things in the Regional Leadership Forum was that you had to think of ideas and then try the ideas on. And it wasn't that you were necessarily buying the idea, but you had to think of the idea. And in this opening of yourself, you were learning how other people thought, right? So I started going down that path, and then I realized, no, wait a minute, in the information technology space, which I've been in for 35 years or so, we have a lot of folks that are not Western, right? We have a lot of Indians, we have a lot of Eastern Europeans who are not necessarily Western from their perspective. They're Eastern Orthodox, right?
Right.
So if we just stick to the great books and the great ideas, we're only looking at Western thought. And although I believe, as I said in our growing the next version of You show, that the Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian values that we've created have really forced a ethos and a culture and a way of being that is significantly better and or has moved the world. That it is significant, but if we don't include the Eastern religions and Eastern thought processes, we're at a loss. So, what is the thing that all of these groups agree to, and their virtues? So the Greeks called it virtue ethics, but there are always modes of being that are either good or evil, right? So in Taoism and Taoism, if you will. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. There's chaos and there's order, right? It's the yin and the yang thing. So if we include all of the people groups in the world, if we include all of the religions, there are a great set of beliefs that we all have in common that are both good or their opposites are evil, sort of like the blue and the red cards that you did, right?
Sure.
So there's actually a group called Virtues International, which were primarily driven by the Baha'i people of the Baha'i faith, but they have embraced lots of different faiths, and they've cataloged all the virtues. And there are cards that talk about how you can utilize these virtues. So virtues is the way that I come to character from a from a universal perspective, so that my Hindu friends and my Buddhist friends and my Baha'i friends and my um, religions all over can agree that these are ways of being that are most powerful and lead to happiness.